Hey, welcome. I'm Cath Nolan, once high-performing perfectionist good girl turned goddess of balance, kicking even bigger goals. This is the podcast where we make balance doable for busy, overstretched working women, embracing your voice, honoring your feminine power, and protecting your energy. This allows you to truly step into greatness for the sake of all you hold dear. This is balance, and I am so glad you are here claiming balance for yourself. Hey there, you are with Cath Nolan. Thank you for joining me. So I want to talk to you today about skills versus strengths. Skills versus strengths. We are conditioned to lead with outcomes, right? Like we're conditioned to get through our days with outcomes, whether it's our personal lives, our professional lives. We measure ourselves constantly based on this list that we have of who we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to achieve, what we're supposed to be delivering for the people around us. There are expectations everywhere, workplace expectations, societal, familial expectations, instead of our own personal special source, our unique strengths. And I truly believe, truly believe that our special source is how we get to great outcomes, unless you want to get to like average outcomes or achieve those great outcomes while absolutely slogging and giving part of your soul. Sadly, this focus that we have on outcomes, on other people's expectations instead of our own unique brilliance, or maybe even our own expectations instead of our own unique brilliance. This focus means that we often fall back on our labels, our groupings, grouping us together with others who are like us in some way. Maybe you are a researcher, so you identify with other researchers, or marketers identify with marketers, analysts with analysts, CEOs identify with CEOs. So the work that you do is a label that you wear. It's one of the labels. But within that, there are other differences. Perhaps you are more innovative, where those around you are conservative. Maybe you're a small business owner, but you are a trailblazing business owner, or maybe you're a conservative business owner. Maybe you carry a physical or mental difference from other people. Maybe it's a reality, maybe it's perception. Or maybe you are single and everyone around you is a loved up parent. Or maybe you are struggling financially and you seem to be a complete lone ranger in a sea of designer labels and fancy fun adventures. Okay, so we all have ways that we see ourselves as different, yeah? Now, if you are focused, sorry, banging the microphone, if you are focused on that difference, then if you think that that difference is in some way a downside for you, if you think it's a way that you don't make the cut, then you're going to see less success. In fact, if you switch to seeing your strengths, to leading with your strengths, you're actually going to see an 8% increase in success. Plus, you're going to see a 4%, a 4x uplift, 4x, not 4%, 4x uplift in engagement or enjoyment on the journey. Now, 8% might not sound radically different, yeah? But let's break that down. I'm going to round it up to 10% for the sake of this exercise. The fact that the data on this varies from 8 to 12%. So, I'm okay giving you a 10% figure for rounding up. I'm not being wildly negligent. Okay, so let's take it to your work. What would a 10% pay rise look like to you? What number would that add to your income? And what impact would you have right now to add that to your income, to add an extra 10% to your income? What impact would that have? Because, we say consistently, that money doesn't buy happiness. But how happy would it be? How happy would it make you to be able to contribute? Say you don't want an extra 10% in your salary. How happy would it make you to give away that amount of money to causes that are important to you or people that are important to you? How would your stress levels change with that kind of a salary difference? Would your holidays be different, or would you be able to pay for something that someone you love is really important to them? Okay, what about reputation? What about your reputation? If your reputation was 10% stronger, what would that do to the quality of the projects or the opportunities that you get involved with? What would a 10% reputation uplift? What would that do to the fun factor in your work? Would you get to do things that are more fun to you? And what about your relationships? If you were, say, a 10% better communicator, what would that do for your relationships? Would you be happy to eliminate 10% of your, that sleep you lose about tough conversations, misunderstandings, arguments? What if you were to lose 10% of those, the 10% of that lost sleep, if you gained back 10% of lost sleep, how would that be? All right, I think you get the idea. So an 8% uplift in success from simply shifting your focus on, well, to leveraging your strengths, shifting your focus to leveraging your strengths, that 8% is going to have a tangible impact in your life in a positive way. So, many of my corporate coaching clients, the work we do is so often life coaching as much as it is work coaching or leadership coaching. So I have to say, like, how much richer would your personal life be if you were able to lean into your strengths at home? Seriously, it gives me goosebumps. Like, the things that have kept my voice small in my life have more often been personal rather than professional. And to be honest, even the ones that were professional, they weren't like global scale issues. Well, some of them were, but for the most part, they were the personal conversations. But what I know for sure is that when I lean into my strengths, man, do I soar, and the people who I love are massively energized by that, both personally and professionally. But okay, let's come back to the impact of your strengths on your work, because I think that most times we think about our strengths as how they relate to work. So let me use those as an example. Okay, so the tricky thing about strengths is that for most people I work with, they start out being really unsure of what their strengths are. So it's hard to lean into them, right? In fact, a lot of people actually aren't even sure what are strengths exactly. What are my strengths meant to be, All right, let me tell you a story. So my first assistant, Erin, was the sweetest girl, incredibly capable, experienced, accommodating. But this is not a story about how brilliant Erin was. This is a story about my empathy gone wild. Empathy is one of my core, deepest strengths. And your truest strengths often have a shadow. They often have a shadow side. So my first assistant, I felt bad when Erin started working for me. I felt bad that she was working for me because she was doing the jobs that I found tricky. She was doing the jobs that I hated. So my language was smarmy. It was over apologetic. I now know that empathy is a superpower for me. But superpowers, your natural strengths, have shadow sides. And with Erin, by me apologizing for the work that I was giving her, I was giving her the impression that the work was menial, unimportant. Actually, that work was her pride and joy, and so it should have been. She's brilliant at what she does. So by projecting my expectations of these tasks being awful, I was minimizing her work, minimizing her value, degrading her role, and just being accidentally revolting. The shadow side to my empathy back then was actually misplaced sympathy. It was toxic. Erin, if ever you hear this episode, I'm sorry. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so sorry. So, can we detangle strengths compared to skills? Because you do need both. All right. Skills are the things that you've learned to be good at. It comes from education. It comes from repetition. Your skills and strengths. Can you hear my dog? Bronte's just had puppies. And so she's like super, super. Can you hear my dog going crazy in the background? I apologize. She's just had puppies, like literally 6 days. The puppies are 6 days old. If you follow anything on socials, you'll see them. You'll see the puppies there. But yes, she's extra protective at the moment, hence the barking. And I'm not going to ask her to be quiet while I'm talking to you, because I'm talking to you. I'm not getting distracted by the dog barking. Okay, so skills. Skills are the capabilities that you've learned, and you've probably learned them by education and repetition. Maybe I should say repetition again. Strengths are inherent. And a sneaky strength decoder is that your strengths usually have a shadow side. I have a feeling I'm going to say the words shadow side like 15 times in this chat with you. So let's talk about let's dive into strengths for a little bit more, right? So your strengths are, if your skills are the things that you've learned by education, repetition, they're generally more practical, task-oriented things. There is absolutely often a crossover. Your strengths are how you uniquely navigate the world, how you connect with others, how you navigate challenges. It's your unique way of enjoying life. Okay, now, if you have known me for more than 5 minutes, you will know that every piece of work that we do has to start with self-awareness. We will move on fast to understanding others in the work that we do, but understanding yourself it's unavoidable. It's an unmissable first step. Like if you skip this first step, you are headed for a train wreck. So that's a whole new episode right there. And I feel like I have to time it right so I don't speak with too much conviction, too much emotion about current stories of people who I'm working with or playing with, who aren't necessarily leading with enough self-awareness. Okay, for now, suffice to say that knowing your strengths can lead to better decision-making, better personal growth. They're unavoidable. Knowing your strengths means more connectedness to yourself, more fun, whatever that looks like to you. Okay, so how do you know? How do you know what your strengths and skills are? I'm going to give you a tool that I use for finding your skills. This is one of my favorite tools, one of my favorite tools. So to understand what your skills are, and I say this because many people are actually not really aware of what their skills are. My number one secret that I probably shouldn't be sharing on the podcast, I'm sure it's in a course somewhere that I've done, but here you go, gift to you. This tool that I'm going to share with you, it's a really simple question to ask. And that is, if you think about the job that you're doing right now, think about writing a job ad for the job that you're doing right now. As long as this job that you're doing right now is one that you've been really great at, right? So assuming that you're doing really well in this job that you're doing right now, think about writing a job ad for this job. And I want you to think about the qualities that are needed for the person who's going to replace you. What qualities does that person need to have? What do they need to be good at? You are going to find some of your strengths in there, but you're also going to find some of your skills, your key skills. Now, as you're going through this process, I know that if I ask you to just write down what your key skills are, you are going to sit with a blank sheet of paper for the next 10 minutes. Men will have much less difficulty with this question than women do. Honestly, you could divide a room. Based on, based on levels of confidence. And we know from the data, from research and anecdotally, that men tend to have more confidence than women do. So I know that if you are a woman, if you identify as a woman, you are likely to have more difficulty answering this question about what are your skills. So hopefully, I'm sure that question, that little trick around, instead of asking yourself, what are your skills? Ask yourself, what are the skills that would be required to replace me and do a good job? Because honey, those are actually your skills. Now, this is going to apply whether you are an employee or a business owner. The same question still applies. If someone was to replace you, what skills would they need to have to do a good job? All right. That's my key tip for knowing your skills, but knowing your strengths. How do you know what your strengths are? There's a few different ways I want to share 4 with you. One is self-reflection, the fastest and quickest way to work it out. Actually, maybe not the quickest, but it's deeply satisfying. If you are a journaler, if you like to journal, then this is a fantastic tool. I'm going to give you a prompt to use shortly. But self-reflection you don't need any extra resources. You don't need to speak to anybody. You don't need an internet browser. You don't need anything. You can just work it out with self-reflection. What are your strengths? What are your strengths? And I'm going to I'll give you that journal prompt shortly. Okay. Feedback from others. That's the second one. Feedback from others. think about what people have said to you in the feedback that you've received from others. When you get a thank you letter that says that, really appreciate what you did there, or you did a great job there, what is the feedback that you've received from others? Now, and the next ones are, well, it's kind of one into two, really. It's two different types of assessments you can do. So there are formal assessments you can find. I really like Clifton Strengths for work-based strengths. And the beautiful thing about these kind of reports is that, and they're not expensive. They're sort of less than $100 to do one of these reports. So the Clifton Strengths Finder is a brilliant one and really widely used for helping you to understand what are your strengths, both individually and also in a team. If you want to do it in a team-based environment, super, super helpful. Okay, so it looks at what are your work-based strengths and what you can do to build them up, what blind spots to look out for. Oh my goodness. When we're talking about shadow sides, the blind spots to watch for are super important. Now, the other one, the last one, is an assessment called the VIA Institute for Character. It is so helpful for finding character strengths. My top three for the VIA character strengths are perspective, social awareness, and leadership. I'll put the links to both of those into the show notes for you. So understanding what your strengths are is super helpful. And to be honest, when we're talking about most self-awareness conversations that I have with people tend to have this question at some point of some brave soul in the back of the room who says, how do I know what my strengths are? So hopefully these tools will be super useful for you. All right. Now, there's always a question on balancing strengths and weaknesses. Always a question on balancing strengths and weaknesses. And I think that it's very natural because we do operate in a world that's so driven towards outcomes, that we're looking to close our gaps. We're aware of our weaknesses, especially women, much more aware of our weaknesses. It's almost like, if I ask men to write down what their weaknesses are, they'll come to those more slowly. They are aware of them. They just don't have them on the tip of their tongue quite as much as women do. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard me tell stories like that before. I'm not going to pull that into this episode right now, but let me tell you instead, there was I've got three kids, right? My kids are currently 11, 13, and 15. I always have to think first. They're 11, 13, and 15. And so the last 10, 15 years for me has included a lot of times where, there was TV, like the kids will say to me, oh, Mummy, you remember we watched this movie before? I'm like, oh, really? Did we? I remember it being on, but I don't remember, like it's new to me again because I'm generally, when I'm watching a movie with the kids, I'm also, getting somebody a tissue or a drink or topping up the popcorn or something. So my attention's on the kids, but not necessarily on the full theme plot of the movie. Anyway, my point here is that in one of those times when the TV's been on in the background, I caught this interview with a tennis pro, and I don't know who it was. And I have searched and searched and searched for this quote, but I still can't find it. So I don't know whether I just need to take this on as saying, this is now my quote. I own it because I can't find where it is. I can't do that. I have to tell you that this belonged to a tennis pro. Okay, so the quote was, this guy, he said, when I work on my weaknesses, I'll only ever get to average. But when I work on my strengths, I can be extraordinary. And I just love this quote so much. I really, truly wish that I knew who the tennis pro was that had said it, because it was so good. And I think it really speaks to the essence of why we need to focus on our strengths more. Life is easier when we work in our strengths, right? Now, I'm not saying that you don't want to understand your weaknesses. Absolutely. Understand what your weaknesses are. Find some way to mitigate them for sure. But focusing on your strengths is bigger and faster. It's just more sustainable results and more joy along the journey. I think that the greatest benefit in understanding your weaknesses is just not being pig-headed about them, so that they're not a blind spot that trips you up. It does require some emotional intelligence as well as skills awareness, but that's another chat for another day. So let's talk about strengths in personal relationships. Personal relationships, work relationships, personal goal setting. Recognizing strengths can improve your communication and your relationships with family and friends, as well as the workplace. And personally, increased self-awareness, it helps your emotional intelligence. Alrighty, I want to talk to you about imposter syndrome. And I know this is so juicy. So, you know that imposter syndrome is often where you compare your skills and not your strengths. Did you know that? Because with skills, it's something that you've learned. So, given that it's something that you've learned, you're probably like hyper aware of how much more other people know in this space than you do, how much better other people have mastered this skill than you have. So you're more aware. If it's a skill, if you're comparing your skills to other people's skills, you're more acutely aware of how much more others know of this particular skill. So imposter syndrome is often where you're comparing your skills, not your strengths. And that's one of the reasons that that's tricky, and I guess, or more common, I should say, is because when you're comparing your skills, they're the things that you've worked on, that you've mastered. They're the things that you've had to focus on, and because you've had to focus on them, they're more front of mind, as opposed to your strengths that are so innate and part of your fiber that you don't have to think about them to use them. Okay, now, hopefully this juicy quickie episode gives you a hankering to want to get to know what your juicy special sauce is. So what can you do from here? What can you do from here? I want you to write up all the things that make you different. And then I want you to write up, how does that difference make you stronger? I put up a LinkedIn post a little while ago. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with social media. I find that I really enjoy connecting with people, but I also find that sometimes being on social media, I'm often flooded with all the things that I should be doing. It's, for me, the challenge is not about comparison. I'm actually just genuinely happy for other people doing their thing. It's more about, for me, social media means a to-do list, a bigger to-do list. And so I tend to be wary of it. But recently I have been posting a little more on LinkedIn, and I've been speaking a bit more from the heart rather than my head. And the feedback has been quite beautiful. So I want to share this post with you that I put up a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, about the differences that we have and how to lean into the strength in those differences. We so often, I'm surrounded by people who put themselves down because of their differences. I'm going to give you one specific example, one very narrow specific example. In talking about communication, I will hear somebody with an accent, and I can hear from their accent that English is not their first language. And we'll be talking about the strength of communication, and the person will say to me, I'm really conscious of my accent. And where I'm hearing an accent and going, oh my goodness, that's fabulous, I can understand you beautifully. They're hearing that. So their perception is that I can't understand them very well. My perception is, here is a person who knows how to truly listen. Because for anybody who lives in a society where their native language is not the language that's spoken in that society, they've probably had to learn to listen really well to learn more than one language. Okay, so here's the post that I want to share with you. So what I said in this post was, our experience of trauma is one of the markers that makes us unique or diverse, just like age, upbringing, gender, personality, and neurodiversity. But understanding the strength in your unique diversity, it's super powerful. So I went on to share that one of my, I guess, elements of diversity, because I do think that we tend to not be able to see how our diversity makes us special. So Here's what I said. I'll use my experience with trauma to show you how we find the strengths in the unexpected. After domestic violence, I doubt myself often. But having survived domestic violence, homelessness, PTSD, having survived, I am unquestionably stronger. So here are 4 ways that my trauma is actually a strength. Number 1, I find my feet faster than most. Number 2, under pressure, I am awesome at deciding where attention is most needed. Number 3, I learned to control my empathy. This is huge. And as I've just told you, empathy is a superpower for me. But in domestic violence, it was a definite weakness. So I've learned to allocate this superpower in more healthy ways, professionally as well as personally. And number 4, I wrote a #1 best-selling book, The Did Great Habit, so that I can help others to apply my comeback strategy to the workplace, team, family, personal goals. So this question of how are you diverse and where does that show up in your superpowers? It is a smart, powerful, beautiful question to ask your team. Ask it of yourself, ask it of your team. When someone shows you their difference, look for their intention before you tempted to respond with pity. Usually, pity is the worst kind of thing that you can give them when someone shows you their difference. It reiterates the message that they are somehow less than, damaged, abnormal. Instead, listen to, understand, and find ways that you can help them to leverage their strengths. So the question from there is, what makes you diverse? And where does that show up in your superpowers? Okay. Now, I told you that one of the ways that you could get a deeper self-awareness is to journal, do a journal entry. Okay, here's the prompt. You are going to journal what went well. Take a single event that makes your heart sing, something that you are really proud of. I want you to journal it. I'd like you to journal it, to write down what happened, and then write why. Why were you able to do that? Why were you personally able to do that where someone else might not have done it so easily? And then I want you to take another event and another and do it again and do it again. Or you can make like it's 2024 and just quiz your way to an answer to this question. I'm going to link in the notes to those two strengths quizzes that are most reputable. The Clifton Strengths Finder is fabulous for work and leadership type strengths, and the ones that are going to make you more cashola. And the VIA Institute for Character Strengths, that's a really juicy long stare in the mirror. So whatever you find, my friend, may you remember to fix your focus on where these strengths of yours are serving you. Where these strengths of yours are serving you. Maybe it's next time you're setting goals, ask how will your strengths help you get there? Next time you're planning an activity with your friends or your girlfriends, your kids, how can your strengths make it more fun, more adventurous, more meaningful for all of you? Yes, you'll look at your shadow side. I know that you will. So I'm not even going to highlight that one because I know that you cannot look away from your shadow side. And each of those reports I told you about, they will tell you what the shadow side is for your strengths. But I would like you to celebrate your strengths. Celebrate your strengths, my friend. Not only will it help you to make better decisions, be more productive, reach success with more ease, but self-appreciation is the first step in truly understanding those around you. All right, I'm off. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. I hope that you'll be more inclined to lean into your strengths as a result of this chat. Will you reach out and let me know if you do? If you do something differently because of this chat, or if you think differently because of this. I love, love, love getting those messages. They're beautiful. Love them. I definitely appreciate them. So if you suspect that anybody that you know could benefit from increasing their self-belief or their motivation, will you help me to grow the podcast? Please leave a review for me. Send this episode on to someone that you know via text or share it on social. Tag me, let me know so that I can say thank you personally, because I truly, truly am grateful. Grateful, grateful. I'm truly grateful. See you next time, my friend. You know, I believe that women do help other women. I hope that this episode has empowered you to question your willingness to go last. I hope that you will embrace balance, and I'm also hoping that you will help me to help other women to do the same. So how can you help? Show your support for the work. Subscribe and review the podcast here where you're listening. Follow the Goddess of Balance on Instagram to catch some cheeky behind the scenes and extras. Connect with me on LinkedIn and share the posts with your network. That would be sensational. If you have enjoyed this program, this episode, you will no doubt love my group coaching program. You've got to find all the links to these in the little written blurb for this episode. Thank you, my friend, for normalizing balance with me. We are raising performance and reputations, wellness and equality. Together, we're creating positive change for working women, starting with you. Sincerely, I thank you for being part of the movement.